We're talking Ball State. Don Shondell and Ray McCallum talking Ball State. Nate Davis and Bonzi Wells. Schumann, Bell Tower, and Worthen. Fans Oliver from Muncie to Berlin. Getting Cannons, Carters, and Greeks. All right, everyone out there in Cardinal land, welcome back for episode number 4 of Cardwood, the show where Ball State men's basketball takes center court. I am John, your host, as always, joined by none other than our great friend and Ball State basketball legend, Trey Moses. Trey, it's good to be back on here with you, man. We took a little bit of a break here, not necessarily intended, but I got pretty busy with some stuff. You had some family in town recently, which I know is a big thing for you. It's been about 2 weeks since we had a chance to talk. How you been?
I've been good, man. It was, the season's not going as well as we want to, but, for me individually, it was good to have my mom here for 6 days. I feel like, once you become a pro and you're overseas, if you have the chance to have family visit and they, could come over here, it kind of gives you um, that mental reset that a lot of guys may need during the season. It's a little different than college, being able to just go home whenever you want. So for me, it was awesome, man.
Nice. What all did you guys do? Obviously, you had some games going on, which we'll get to in just a second. But with your mom there, did you guys do anything fun? Did you take her anywhere she hadn't been before? Or kind of walk us through your time together?
Yeah, so it was a bit rough because 2 of the days it was nothing but rain. But we just got to go around Lugano, which Lugano is the city I play in, which is really pretty. For all those that don't know, you should look it up. Really, really pretty. Um, Had a game on Saturday that she got to go to. Unfortunately, we lost, but I played well. That's only the second game as a pro she's gotten to go to.
Oh, cool.
Um, and then we had a cup game on Wednesday, so it was a little tough because those cup games can randomly get scheduled. And she had already bought her ticket, but the cup game was scheduled already. And unfortunately, it was a away game. Um, so it was kind of too far for them to travel. So unfortunately, they didn't get to go. But just whatever we may get to do or may not get to do, just being able to see family and get that reset and be around some people that you just love and care about so much. It definitely just helps.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad to hear that she was able to make it out there. And like you said, it's a crazy long distance between the two places, and just it's like a nice refresh, restart, kind of get your balance again on things. So I'm glad she was able to get out there and watch you play. You said second time you ever played, she's seen you played. Um, I believe last time we spoke, you had said you had a game coming up against another former Ball State member of the men's basketball program, and then Peyton Sparks. Did that game happen already? And if so, did you get a chance to talk to Peyton while you were there?
Yeah, they ended up winning the game. Unfortunately, Peyton got hurt start
Oh,
of the second half, but they pulled out the game. I think by six or I think they won by six. I got to talk to him a little bit before the game, and for me, we talked throughout the game too. I'm kind of one of those guys that I play hard, compete no matter who I play against, but I do talk during the games. Peyton's doing well. Checked in on him after the injuries, doing well, but um, it was one of those things where for me, I kind of was talking to Peyton, trying to get him to come to Ball State. Witt was, I knew Witt wanted him bad, so I was trying to do, whatever I could, answer any questions I could to help get Peyton there. Um, so for me, it was awesome getting to play against a former Ball State, player, and um, he keeps up with Ball State as well, and it's just good to see guys that went to Ball State just have that same pride and love for the university.
yeah. When he came on the scene, obviously he was the MAC Freshman Player of the Year. It was
Hmm.
unbelievable player. Obviously left to go to Indiana for about a year, and I don't blame him for that because I'm sure obviously he got paid quite a bit. I'd have loved to see him stay his whole time at Ball State and kind of continue to grow in that Mid American Conference. But again, that's just kind of the day and age of college basketball nowadays, where people have a good year. if someone's going to throw some money at you, I'm not going to fault you for taking it because it can be life changing, especially, Indiana University's got deep pockets. So I'm sure they weren't skimping him on, on those whatever
No,
paychecks he was getting
100%. Yeah.
there.
I
So,
think
hey,
at one
yeah,
point we talked a little bit, and I just talked to him about leaving a legacy. And, I feel like for me at Ball State, I kind of left a legacy. And, um, I think he goes down as one of those guys that, if he obviously was a great player, if he didn't leave for Indiana, he, shatters a lot of records and
for sure.
really puts his name in the legacy threshold of Ball State University, but obviously had a great career. And, I
Hmm.
don't, again, like you said, you don't blame these guys for, taking, leaving to get some money if they can get it. And, um, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about the legacies at these sports. And I've talked about this over on the football show sometimes, but it's like it seems like a lot of these records, like if you have records at Ball State right now, they're probably going to stay intact forever at this rate because anytime it seems like you're going to have someone who would be a chance to break one of those records, they're going to get scooped up and they're going to move on. So, the legacies that people have are going to be much different now. It's going to be more on like a season by season basis, really. And like I said, you see that in football a lot now too. And we have Willie Snead on the show over there, and I don't think anyone's ever going to touch any records that he has over there because it's like people just won't be around long enough. And that's
Mhm.
again just kind of the state we're in with college basketball. So uh, before we move on, again, we have some games we talk about now. It's been a couple weeks, so we have a few games we can go over here. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone out there watching: if you like the show, if you love Ball State men's basketball, be sure to follow us over on YouTube at Ball State of the Union. Leave comments on the videos. Leave likes on the videos, everything. Trey, when we were doing the football show the other night, we always do a live fan question, Q&A, and someone said, when do we get Cardwood back? And so we got fans over there tuned into the football show. So I had to tell them we've had a little bit of I was busy, like I said at the start. I was busy, you were busy, so we're finally able to kind of get one in here before a big game this weekend and a tournament next weekend. So looks like we got about 4 games we can go over here. Have you had a
Mhm.
chance to watch Ball State live? And if so, which of these games do you want to start with? If not, I can kind of just walk us through them.
Yeah, I mean, we can just kind of go through them, just off the top of my head. Like you look at the Wisconsin game, you kind of take that with a grain of salt. It is what
Mm-hmm.
it is. That's a money game, and obviously, I kind of talked about it before. If you can, that's one you're excited to go play. If you can get it, you're obviously super excited. But if you're not don't, then you're not, beating yourself up. But then we go to the next one. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up again against Little Rock. And to me, when you're going up against these other mid-major programs, like you're trying to submit yourself as one of these teams that is the top of the mid-major program. You look at the women's side of it, they just beat Cincinnati yesterday and
Mm-hmm. Great win.
uh, beat Memphis last week or the week before. And, like that's to me, not comparing the two, but like that's the standard of mid-major basketball is having the opportunity to beat these other mid-majors and really show who you are. And so against Little Rock, getting out rebounded the way you did, like that 36-18, like that's the concern we had before the year, but you kind of those are the games we got to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of go all the way back here too. We can kind of just run through the other two as well. So obviously, the first game of the year, Louisiana, was something we were all excited for. They were able to get a win there. Shot really well from three, over like 50% from 3-point line, which was a little surprising to me. It did not seem like we were going to be maybe the best shooting team, but I got some stats here in a little bit that is proving me wrong already. So uh, although they shot really well from three, it was still kind of like a tight game throughout. And then you had some big drives into the paint by some guards with Davion Hill, Ziegler, these guys finishing at the rim, kind of getting points in other areas that maybe they aren't always going to. I know we are all excited about the Louisiana game as well, Trey, and the MAC Sun Belt Challenge. I know they got a big win there. Do you have any other thoughts on that first game? I know it's a couple weeks back now, but anything that stood out to you from what you remember from Louisiana?
Yeah, for me, my big two takeaways were, Z. I think he absolutely left his footprint on the game. Obviously he didn't score the most points. Everyone's going to point to Davion Hill, but to me, Z was kind of the game changer for that. He really big plays when we needed them, and you always look at Um, you always look at the guys that can provide when you absolutely need it. And to me, he made the plays when he needed it. Caden only finished 8 points, 3 of 5 shooting. But when he was aggressive, he scored. And to me, that's the Caden we need, is the one that's being aggressive, looking to score, looking to finish. And the rebounding aspect, he only finished that game with 2 boards. Um, I will say rebounding can be a little tough at times. New team trying to figure it out, but that's the other aspect where you kind of need Kane to step up, is being the enforcer on the boards too.
Hmm. Yeah, and another guy we've seen a lot in that big position, the Mason Jones. He's playing a lot of minutes again, but like you said, they're not tallying up tons of rebounds. So will that be a problem going forward? I guess time will tell. But you know, obviously, the more rebounds you can get, the more possessions you can get, especially on the offensive end. So more rebounding is always better. But I guess if for some reason you're making shots, then maybe you're not having as many rebounds. I guess is also something we can look at too. So the Mansfield game. So now we go forward a little bit with Mansfield. A tighter first half than I think a lot of people were expecting or wanting, but obviously Ball State's able to really kind of flex their muscles in the second half and pull away and end up winning by 30. Uh, Again, obviously, a step down in competition for Mansfield. But any takeaways from the Mansfield game, and did the first half concern you at all?
No, it doesn't concern me. I think you look at it. You had the Max Sunbelt Challenge the game before, and you go from that to a much lesser opponent, in my opinion. So you kind of may not mentally prepare yourself the same way. You may do certain things differently on game day, but you got to prepare every single game like these teams can beat you. And so for me, I would say that was probably the one thing that I would say is that they probably just didn't come as ready as they should have.
Hmm.
Whether that's I'm not going to put that on coaching. I fully believe he's getting these guys ready.
Yeah.
But sometimes as players, we can overlook opponents, and that's how you kind of lose those games. But thankfully, we had the big second half.
So Coach Lewis is a pretty fiery guy, and I think that's fairly well known. How do you think the locker room was like at halftime of that game?
Oh, I bet he was. I bet he was on.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I bet he felt like that was unacceptable. For me, um, being my junior senior year, I would have felt the same way. I mean, even now on a team where we're not winning as much, like I'm holding myself to a standard. I'm trying to hold my teammates to a certain standard because I know what it takes. And so, he's probably has a standard set and they're not meeting that standard, in that game. And rightfully so, he's getting on them at halftime. And so
Mhm.
you saw, they stepped up to the challenge and came out and played better.
Yeah, and then the name that you mentioned, Armani Ziegler in that first game against Louisiana, a good game here as well, 20 and 9 rebounds, which I think is well above what he usually averages. But again, we'll take him whenever we can get. And then we'll kind of briefly go back over the last two. You talked about him a little bit, but that Wisconsin game, obviously, no one's really expecting a win in that scenario. You look okay in the first half. You get off to a pretty slow start, but you look okay in the first half. Obviously, they're going to pull away. But Elmore James, 30 minutes off the bench, and leading scorer as well. I don't know exactly. Let me find it here. I know he played 30 minutes off the bench, which is good to see that you have that kind of motor and you can come off the bench and do that. And I think he had around 20 points as well. Obviously, you're playing a lot of minutes, so you're going to score some. So, 17 points. Is there anything else to take away from this game? Is it just you take it with a grain of salt, like you said, and just kind of enjoy the environment, enjoy the experience? Or is there like something that you saw from this game that you want to put a pin in, either good or bad going forward?
I think it's a little bit of both, like in terms of you kind of just take it with a grain of salt, but you also look at it and like you said, he came off the bench, had 17. Like you kind of may be able to look at that and be like, either he can be the first man off the bench and be that spark, or it's time to maybe move him into the starting lineup, continue with the minutes, continue letting him kind of rock out. Um, but you don't want to make drastic changes over a team that's probably going to finish top 15, top 20 at worst.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good Wisconsin team. Wisconsin's always good, especially playing on the road. So, you know, at the end of the day, all you ask in these big games that you compete, that you fight, the same way in Mansfield, you can kind of overlook them. You're kind of hoping Wisconsin overlooks you. And the same way when we beat Notre Dame, they probably overlooked us a little bit. We kept it close, and at the end, we ended up winning. That's kind of what you want in these big games. Is sometimes these teams may come off a little disrespectful in terms of overlooking you, but same way we took over Mansfield, they took over in the second half.
Yep. And then last one, Little Rock, obviously most recent game. I think this is one, if they could redo this again, obviously hindsight is 2020. This is one that they'd want to have back. I think it was a tight game in the first half, and you would hope as the home team, you come out and play better in the second half. They didn't really play much better. And you were talking about it kind of when you came off the jump, you got massively out rebounded. I think it's like 36-18 or something rebounding wise. I did not have a chance to watch this game. Is there anything aside from the rebounding that you really noticed? It seems like maybe we missed a handful of free throws as well, which is going to be something I'm going to get to after this game. But anything else to take away from the Little Rock game? I know it's probably disappointing for them, especially after winning that game at home against Louisiana to start the year.
The big shooting again, both teams only hit 7 threes, but the difference is we shot 9 more. You missed 6 free throws, get out rebounded 36-18. But then points in the paint, they win that battle by 14.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be a smaller team like we are, there's got to be some sort of like give and take of like not allowing guys to get into the paint as easy. Like all 5 guys hitting a man, all 5 guys rebounding. And I'm not saying that, these guys aren't trying because they 100% are, but I think these are probably a lot of the principles that Mike is preaching to their guys, that like this type of game can't happen again. You will rarely see teams get, doubled in the rebounding battle and win. Like it's tough to win games that way, but at the end of the day, you lost this game by 6 and had every opportunity to win it.
Right. Yeah. And like we were talking about with rebounds, obviously it's possession. So it's either you're getting the ball back for you to go back on offense, or you're getting extra offensive possessions. And to be basically doubled up and lose by 6, like I said, I think this is one they'd really like to have back, because that seems like a pretty winnable game if you can even just shave that down to even, instead of getting doubled up, maybe they only get half as many as you. Like if they can kind of cut down that sum, I think this is a game that they find a way to win fairly easily. So okay, so we're 4 games in now, 2-2. Obviously, 3 games at home, 3 and 1 on the road. They're about to go to Indiana State, which we'll get to in a second, and they're going to go to a tournament next week, I believe, in Pennsylvania to play 3 games. So, Trey, through 4 games, what are some of your main takeaways? Maybe some of the things that you've really liked, or maybe some of the things that definitely need to be worked on going forward.
I wasn't expecting Z to have, the start to the season he's having. Obviously, he's a good player, but I think he's been the guy that's, we had highlighted Davion Hill. We highlighted all these other guys. I highlighted Caden. But he's one of these guys that's really putting on a show and making, obviously he's scoring the ball, but he's defending, he's rebounding, he's doing all the little things. So I'm really proud of him, and I hope he continues to just keep playing the same way. But in the team aspect, we talked about being a smaller team and needing to rebound the ball. So you kind of, I guess, that expectation there of trying to just do your best to win those battles. But for me, I think Cade needs to step up a bit more. I think he's a great player. And the reason I've been so high on him is because I know what he can do. The reason I'm saying he needs to step up more is because I know what he can do. It has nothing to do with anything else other than I know the player he is and can be. And to me, it's the rebounding side of stuff, and being aggressive when he gets the ball. Obviously, I'm not his coach, so I'm not going to tell him to go be selfish and do all these things. But to me, he's a good player. And when he catches in the post, I feel like at times he's looking to just pass first. And I had the same issue. I have the same issue. It's, for me, I love getting teammates involved. I love seeing others shine. But at some point, you got to turn that and and show that. Like Little Rock, we had 24 points in the paint over the court. Like that's not good enough. Like we, especially in the MAC, like how physical the MAC is and how big it can be. Like Caden's got to be a guy that's up there with the 12 to 15 points, in my opinion, per game if we're going to be the team we want to be this year.
Mm-hmm. And statistics don't tell the whole story, but they obviously give you a snapshot into what's going on here. And so my 2 big key takeaways so far are statistic based. And one of them I think is very good, and we'll get to that second. But I'll start with the one that's very bad, and this is one that honestly feels like has been a problem for Ball State basketball since my brother played on the team back in 2008. It always seems like we're a very poor free throw shooting team. And right now, Ball State isn't like the 300s percentage wise, or excuse me, for a nationwide, they're like 311th out of 361 in free throw percentage. That number's got to get up here because we're not a big team. It's harder for us to get into the paint, obviously, with our smaller guys going in there. So if we want easy buckets, we're going to have to convert these free throws because sitting at 300th out of 361 or 311th to 361 is not great. And I don't remember what the exact percentage was that we have. I've seen a couple of different ones, which is funny because ESPN had them at one percentage and then NCAA had another one. I don't know how that's possible. That seems like a very cut and dry thing, but they all had them in that 300 range. So that is something that, and Trey, maybe you can explain this to me. How is it that teams can shoot so poorly from the free throw line? Is it like, I know they practice, I know they practice free throws. That's like the most basic thing you can do. Everyone go out and get your shots up. How does that happen?
For me personally, I was god awful in college at shooting free throws. Like there was a Eastern Michigan my junior or senior year. I had like 20 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, like one of my better games, almost a triple double. And yet we lose by one, and I go like 4 for 14 from the line. And they asked me the same question, but little do they know the next day I made 56 free throws in a row. And so at the end of the day, it's all about focus. And for me, especially that game, it was 1 miss, 2 miss. Well, now you're in your head. You're like, damn, I can't miss another one. 3, 4. You're like, it's never going to go in. So it's just about focus and confidence at the end of the day. That's basketball as a whole. It's just playing with focus, playing with confidence. Like you said, these guys practice. I practice free throws every day. I still, before every game, I make 10 free throws in a row. I will say to Ball State fans, I'm shooting 75% from the line this year, and I was about 50% in college. So, it's just focus and confidence. Just stepping up to the line, knowing you're going to make it. If you miss it, not letting the first one affect the second one.
And obviously, again, this is a small sample size. This is through 4 games, so this could drastically change, and it could change quickly. But this is just what we have to go off so far, and I don't like seeing us in the 300s. Now, where I do like to see us, 3-point percentage. 75th in the country, so top 100 right now. Again, a small sample size. That's way higher than I expected us to be. I did not expect us to be a great 3-point shooting team by any means. But, Trey, they're knocking them down from out there right now. Is this something you can see them continuing? Do they need to up this 3-point shooting that they're doing? I know, obviously, in Little Rock, they didn't shoot that great. But what do you think about this 3-point shooting? This is a 3-point barrage that these guys had that I didn't expect.
I will say the big difference between like this team and my teams, especially like my sophomore, junior year, like we were a great 3-point shooting team. We had Sean Sellers, Ryan Weber, Taylor, Francis Chiappe, like all guys that could shoot. But then we also had paint presence, and me, Franco House, like Bo Calhoun, my freshman year. Like we had that, like, if you want us to beat you by the shooting threes, we can do it. If you're going to guard the 3-point line, Taylor got into the paint at will. So it's just finding that balance of like getting good open looks, which they are, but also making sure that you're not falling in love with a 3-point shot. Like, can you pass up a great 3-point or a good 3-point shot, make an extra pass that gets a guy a rip through and a layup? Like, to me, keep going from a good shot to a great shot is what is kind of needed at times, and not just falling in love with the 3-point shot.
Okay. So you don't think we're going to turn into like the Golden State Warriors of the past 10 years?
I don't think so, but I will say, Caden could play that Draymond role in terms of, playmaking, creating for other guys. And, if it's the way to win games, it's going to be the way to win games. But at the same time, if it's not falling, you got to fall back on defense and rebounding.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of the first 4 games here so far. And before we kind of look into this next week, there's one thing I wanted to talk to you about and see if you've heard anything. I haven't really heard anything. I couldn't really find much on the internet about it. But if you go back to that exhibition game against Purdue Fort Wayne, I was watching it live, and they had said Joey Hart was out with maybe a foot injury or something like that. He is a name we haven't seen yet, and it didn't seem like at the time he was going to be out for very long, but we haven't seen him yet. Have you heard anything? Do you know anything about what's going on with him? I assume it's injury related still at this point, but like I said, I couldn't find anything. The only thing I've ever heard was in that game against Purdue Fort Wayne, the exhibition game. Do you know anything else?
I don't know anything, but just knowing some of these coaches, it's early in the season and there's no sense in rushing some guys back. Even if you're 3-2, there's no difference in 3-2 and 2-2 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You'd rather go winless and not rush a guy back and he come back for MAC and be able to contend in the MAC play. So, obviously, like I said, I haven't heard anything, but you're just not wanting to rush back, especially, a foot injury because the fifth metatarsal is the most broken bone in a foot. And I don't know if he broke his foot. I'm not saying that, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
that's what you're not wanting out of rushing guys back.
Okay, yeah, and like obviously the non-conference games matters. You want to do what you can, but really for a team like Ball State, as cut and dry as this is, these games really don't matter for their long-term overall goals. Like
Yeah.
you could go winless in non-conference, and if you make it to the MAC tournament and you win the MAC tournament, you go to the NCAA tournament. Where in hindsight, you could go undefeated in non-conference, and if you don't win that MAC tournament, you're probably not going. So that's a good point. I didn't think about that of not rushing somebody back for this. And if sitting him now means he's better long term during the MAC play, then I'm all for it. So speaking of non-conference games, though, from a fan perspective, and I'm curious as to where you fall on this. Obviously, the big game this weekend against Indiana State. As a fan, for me, this is our biggest rival that we play every year. There's two teams that we pretty much play every year at this point. It's Indiana State and it's Evansville. I would put the Indiana State rivalry a little bit ahead of Evansville just because it's a lot closer. It's more accessible for people to go. A lot of people live in Indianapolis, so it's equidistant. They can go to either. But this is, to me as a fan, kind of our biggest rival now. As a player, I know it was a little bit different back then. We played some other teams as well. Where does Indiana State rank on your rivalry level as a player?
And non-conference probably number one.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a game you want to have. And for us, I think it was both teams didn't like each other. A lot of these guys, we had 9 guys from Indiana. They had a lot of guys from Indiana. So like they clearly had these rivalries from probably high school that like I didn't know about, but still at the same time, like I'm always gonna have my guys back. So like for us and them, like I think it's two teams that just don't like each other as much. At times, got a little chippy, trash talk, all that, and that's what you want out of a rivalry. It makes it fun.
That's right. And so, unfortunately, Indiana State leads the all-time series. These guys have played over 100 times, 76-63. And they, again, unfortunately, have a 3-game winning streak right now. The last Ball State win in this series was November 27th, 2021. A pretty convincing win, 97-75 at Worthen Arena. So the game is Saturday at Indiana State, 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. So people, can easily watch it if you got ESPN Plus, which if you're a Ball State diehard, I'm sure you probably do. So the little I know about Indiana State so far, it seems like their best player, a big forward, 6'7", 220 pounds. He averages about 14 and 10 a game, which could spell trouble for Ball State potentially. Do you know much about Indiana State, Trey? And if so, kind of what do you expect or what do you hope to see from Ball State this Saturday to maybe get out of Terre Haute with a win?
I was kind of just looking at some of the teams they played, before we hopped on. A loss to Charlotte, beat Illinois Tech, which is whatever. Lost to SIU, lost to Duke, and then beat Louisiana Tech. To me, we're probably similar teams. Like I think the big thing is going to come down to can you contain him? Can you keep him 10 boards and under? For me, that's my goal anytime I play against a good player. It's to try to keep them under their average, especially the rebounding aspect. Like you're not wanting him to go in and get a 20-20 double-double and walk out feeling good. You're wanting to hold him to 6 and 8. And to me, like that's the challenge. I'll be interested to see who we guard him with. Are we going to guard him with a are we going to guard him with a big and Caden? Or are we going to guard him with some of these longer, lankier wings we have? Um, I think it'll be a fun one though.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see it. Obviously, it's a big day. You know, just like last week, you had two game football and basketball the same day. Obviously, those are both at home. This is now both on the road. So you have football earlier in the day, which I don't think that's going to go very well. But that's a time for another discussion for another day. And then this, and I'm excited for this game because, like I said, as a fan, this is the big rival to me. And so, you know, they've lost three in a row. I want them to go in there and get a win. Did you ever play a game at Indiana State, Trey?
I think I only played one game at Indiana State. The other three were maybe it was two, but I want to say every other one was in Muncie.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like we've played them maybe at Bank or down at the field house in Indianapolis as well before. I don't know if you were on the team when that happened, but I feel like we played. I know we played IUND or IUPY, whatever you want to call them. I know we played them at the field house, which has had all kinds of different names. It's probably Banker's Life at the time. I think it's Gainbridge Fieldhouse now. But so yeah, I'm excited to see if they can go in there and win. Obviously, the home of Larry Bird, the Larry Bird Trophy or statues outside. So whenever I get back up to Indiana, I'm gonna hit this game up for sure when it's in Terre Haute because I've never been there. So okay, I think that basically covers the Indiana State game. And again, I'm excited for it, and hopefully all the fans out there are as well. We'll kind of touch briefly before we wrap this up. We'll kind of touch briefly on this tournament as well. I know you played in some tournaments as well over Thanksgiving break, feast week as people like to call it. So Ball State is playing in a tournament out there in Pennsylvania. So they're going to play Monmouth, Lafayette, and Lemoyne. So Trey, as a former player and someone who's played in these tournaments, what's kind of your hope and expectation going into these tournaments? And what do you expect from Ball State when they get out to Pennsylvania next week?
You know, for us, I think my favorite was probably my senior year in the Charleston Classic. You know, we started off with Virginia Tech, who was ranked at the time. It was a 8 or 9 point loss, but we were right there. Played Alabama, we got curb stomped, and then we played. I can't remember who we played after, but for me, these games are fun. It's a little different than non-conference. Obviously, it's still non-conference, but it's not a scheduled non-conference game in terms of like, these are all scheduled. But for us in the Charleston Classic, we played the loser of whoever. So it was kind of that anticipation of kind of not knowing who you're going to play next. Obviously, they know who they're playing next in these tournaments or in this tournament, but you again, I talk about the mid-major thing. Like you go into this wanting to prove you're the better mid-major, and I to me, I think this is a chance to go 3-0, 2-1 at worst, and that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of that's kind of as from a fan perspective, and that's kind of how I'm looking at this. And this is a good chance. You start off with Indiana State, just a regular non-conference game. You get that one going to this tournament, can go 3-0, 2-1. You're feeling a lot different.
Yeah, you got a chance to come out of Thanksgiving, 3, 4 more wins under your belt, which is something that you'd really want going into another rivalry game on the road at Evansville. I believe it's the next one after that. So it's called the Lafayette Classic, I believe. I believe Lafayette is the host school out there in Easton, Pennsylvania. So I don't know if any Ball State fans out there are going to be going. I know last year they played down in Florida over in Fort Myers. I drove over and went to one of the games. So if you got a chance to go check it out, they're kind of fun. You buy a ticket, you get a handful of games throughout the day. If you got the whole day, you can go and watch college basketball all day. So if you got a chance to go, I'd say I'd recommend it. But I don't know how many people are going to be in Easton, Pennsylvania Thanksgiving week who listen to this show. So who knows? I might fall at deaf ears. So Trey, before we wrap up and get out of here, I think this has been good. It's been fun. We'll hopefully we'll be able to get back sooner than we did this time. Any last things about this team, or just anything else you want to say to the Ball State fans out there?
Yeah, just kind of reiterating what I said before, patience. Being from Louisville, I'm seeing a lot of the stuff with Kentucky's program going on in terms of, they had high expectations. Mark Pope is either the right guy for the job, all this stuff. And at the end of the day, fans got to realize that this team has been together for what, 3, 4 months at most? And you've probably had two exhibition games, another secret scrimmage. Like you have all these different, but it's just not enough. At some point, these guys will gel, get used to really playing with each other. It's so much different than when I played. Like, yes, guys graduate, but I was with Taylor Tajay for 4 straight years, Josh Thompson for 4 straight years. Like all these guys that played big minutes, like we had a core. It's so much different now. So I think just to the fans, just be patient. It'll come. Wins will come, and you'll kind of forget this little stretch we're going through. But you know, I don't know if he watches, but I'm challenging Caden. You know, I think this is a good stretch for him to show who he really is. I think he's a great player. Z's got to keep stepping up, and then Davion's got to keep stepping up too. And to me, those are the three guys that kind of keep us going.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm really excited this week to lock in feast week. I love that we play in these tournaments now, so everyone can enjoy. It's obviously not the Maui Invitational or any of those types of ones, but it's feast week, and I'm gonna be locked in for the Lafayette Classic or Invitational, whatever I said it was called. I'll be watching. So, all right. I think that's going to wrap us up here. That's episode number 4 of Cardwood. Again, if you're a fan of the show, please be sure to subscribe to us over there on the YouTube channel. Leave a comment on the video, like it, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your grandma, whoever you need to tell about Cardwood. Let them know we're over here talking Ball State men's basketball. And if you're a football fan, the next episode of Ball State of the Union will be on Sunday night. We're going to do a recap of the Toledo episode. And we're also going to have Jonathan Newsom, former Ball State Cardinal and Indianapolis Colt, on the show. He's going to talk about his time in Muncie and tell us what he's up to now. So until then, everyone out there, keep chirping, chirp, chirp, and go Cardinals.